Brooklyn, 1972. A gifted kid in a cramped apartment starts spinning tales from streets ruled by fear and survival. That boy would become the Notorious B.I.G, changing hip-hop forever while living in a world stacked against him. What makes someone rise from crack-era Bed-Stuy to redefine an entire coast sound? And what did he risk to get there? Christopher Wallace grew up in a one-room apartment at 226 St. James Place, tucked between Fulton Street and Gates Avenue in Brooklyn. The neighborhood, known as Bed-Stuy, was battered by the crack epidemic and street violence that shadowed every childhood memory. His mother, Valletta Wallace, a Jamaican immigrant and preschool teacher, worked double shifts to keep the lights on. She raised Christopher alone after his father left when he was just 2 years old. Even in a home with no heat, she insisted on discipline and education. Christopher stood out at Queen of All Saints Middle School, winning awards for English and earning the nickname Big for his size and presence. He spent afternoons bagging groceries, helping his mother at her preschool job, and by his early teens, absorbing the rhythms and stories of the streets. On Brooklyn corners, he traded verses with friends, turning freestyle battles into a kind of neighborhood theater. The tension between his mother's hopes and the reality outside their door shaped every line he wrote and every choice he made. Sean Puff Daddy Combs first heard Biggie's demo in 1992, catching the raw talent that local Brooklyn crowds already knew. At the time, Combs was working at Uptown Records, but industry shakeups pushed him to start his own label. By 1993, Bad Boy Entertainment was born, and Biggie became one of its first signings. The partnership brought together Combs' vision and Wallace's storytelling, setting the stage for a new sound in New York rap. In September 1994, Ready to Die dropped, with its lead single Juicy quickly turning into an anthem. The album's mix of autobiographical grit and radio-ready hooks landed it on the charts and in heavy rotation across the country. Big Papa earned a Grammy nomination, and Ready to Die put East Coast hip-hop back in the national spotlight. Bad Boy's rise was sudden and unmistakable, fueled by Combs' drive and Biggie's voice, a combination that would shape the direction of hip-hop for years to come. Christopher Wallace's voice on record was as unmistakable as his presence in a room, smooth, unhurried, yet packed with detail. On Big Papa, producer Chucky Thompson laid down a mellow groove, and Wallace glided over it, stacking multisyllabic rhymes that rolled off his tongue with ease. Each line fit the beat like it was sewn for him, his breath control so precise that he could stretch a phrase, then snap it tight, never losing the pocket. Easy Mo B, who crafted Warning, recalled how Wallace could shift from a conversational whisper to a menacing growl in a single verse, switching characters mid-flow. In Warning, Wallace plays both the caller and himself, his cadence changing to mark each voice. The storytelling is cinematic. Who the hell is this? Paging me at 5:46 in the morning? The tension builds with every bar, every pause. On Suicidal Thoughts, the emotion cuts deeper, the delivery unraveling into confessional despair. Wallace's technical mastery, his internal rhymes, assonance, and sense of rhythm that let him ride any beat became a blueprint for hip-hop lyricism. Producers and peers alike watched him build stories line by line, never wasting a word, always making the listener see, feel, and believe every scene. Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace once shared a bond that ran deeper than industry competition. In the early 1990s, they traded verses, advice, and even bottles of Hennessy, each recognizing the other's talent. That friendship unraveled on November 30th, 1994, when Shakur was shot 5 times in the lobby of Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan. Wallace and Sean Combs were upstairs at the time, set to record, but Shakur, wounded and angry, saw a betrayal where he expected support. In a prison interview with Vibe magazine just months later, Shakur accused Wallace and Combs of knowing about the ambush, fueling a sense of personal violation that headlines quickly amplified. The press seized on every accusation, framing the fallout as a war between coasts rather than a rupture between two men. Radio stations, magazine covers, and TV spots ran with the narrative: Bad Boy versus Death Row, New York against Los Angeles. The real story was more tangled. Industry pressures, label rivalries, and the hunger for spectacle all fed the fire. What began as a personal rift now played out on a national stage, leaving artists and fans caught in the crossfire as the stakes around Wallace's rising fame grew ever higher. By early 1997, Christopher Wallace was operating on a level few rappers had reached. In the studio, he mapped out an album that wouldn't just top charts, it would sprawl across them. Life After Death wasn't a single disc but a double album, packed with stories, characters, and ambition. The scope was massive, 24 tracks, each one crafted to show every side of his artistry, from street tales to radio anthems. Singles like Hypnotize and Mo Money Mo Problems stormed the airwaves, climbing to #1 and blasting from car stereos coast to coast. The sound was bigger, brighter, and more cinematic than anything he'd done before. Wallace wasn't just thinking about himself. He brought his childhood friends into the spotlight as Junior MAFIA, mentoring them through their own album and giving his crew a platform. He started talking about building his own imprint, expanding his reach beyond rapping into executive moves. With each hit, his world grew. More fame, more money, more eyes watching. The stakes had never been higher. As Life After Death prepared for release in March 1997, Wallace stood at the height of his powers, celebrated everywhere he went. But with all that visibility came a sense of unease, a feeling that the next step might be more dangerous than any that came before. March 9th, 1997. In the early hours, Christopher Wallace left a party at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. He rode in the front passenger seat of a green GMC Suburban, part of a small convoy making its way through the city. At the intersection of Wilshire Boulevard and South Fairfax Avenue, a black Chevrolet Impala pulled up alongside. 9 shots rang out. Wallace was struck 4 times. His security team rushed him to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but he was pronounced dead at 1:15 in the morning. He was just 24 years old. The Los Angeles Police Department launched an immediate investigation. Detectives Gregory Kading, Darlene Belknap, and Brian Tyndall led the case. Despite dozens of interviews and years of inquiry, no one has been arrested or charged. The shooter remains unidentified. The motive is still a matter of debate. Was it a personal vendetta, a gang hit, or fallout from industry rivalries? Surveillance footage and eyewitness accounts offered only fragments. Key evidence remains sealed or missing. The case is officially unsolved. Who fired the fatal shots? Why? More than 2 decades later, the answers remain locked away and the law still echoes through music and memory. Shock rippled through hip-hop and beyond as news of Christopher Wallace's death reached fans and fellow artists. Within days, record stores reported a surge in sales of his albums, and Life After Death shot to the top of the charts. The sense of loss was immediate and public. In the spring of 1997, Sean Combs, Faith Evans, and 112 released I'll Be Missing You, a tribute single that blended mourning with celebration. The song debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and it stayed there for 11 weeks, becoming one of the best-selling singles of the year. Candlelight vigils and radio call-ins poured out grief and gratitude as fans and peers honored the man whose voice had defined a generation. Christopher Wallace's legacy has only grown in the years since his death. In 2020, he joined the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an honor reserved for artists whose influence reshapes music itself. The Library of Congress recognized Ready to Die in 2024, adding it to the National Recording Registry as a work of lasting cultural value. Brooklyn made his memory permanent in 2019, renaming the stretch of St. James Place where he grew up to Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace Way. His mother's foundation continues to support local children, keeping his spirit rooted in the neighborhood that shaped him. Today, rappers from Jay-Z and Kendrick Lamar to J. Cole cite Biggie as a blueprint, his storytelling, his flow, his presence. his name stands as a reference point, not just for hip-hop, but for American music and culture at large. Biggie's words echo in every corner of hip-hop today, streamed by millions, studied by artists, and quoted across generations. In a world still shaped by inequality, his voice remains proof that raw truth can't be silenced. The beat goes on, and his story still shapes the sound.